Hello everyone, my name is Cesar Gadea Gonzalez, and today I'm going to be talking about the ethics behind copying someone else's software for your own personal utility. To analyze this, we're going to be going over what exactly is the good and what exactly is the bad in this topic. I will be arguing for both ways, as well as giving my own personal opinion on the matter. We'll be going over piracy, and we will also be covering the topic of copywriting and a little bit about the history and why I believe it should be enforced, because there are many people who will try to take software and use it for their own personal good or gain. Now, personally, I believe that stealing someone's software is extremely bad. I don't condone it in any way, shape, or form. Please do not do it, as I believe society loses from this. And without further ado, let's get on to the presentation. Now we're going to be talking about copywriting software. For those of you who do not know what copywriting means, it is essentially a shell that you place around your own software to prevent other people from taking it and copying it and using it for their own profit. Now, the process of copywriting software wasn't really developed until the 1970s, so any software developers back then had to really fight for position to gain their credit for their work. And coding was a very rare skill back then. Over time, modern tech has evolved and coding has become more advanced, so we're able to make better programs and better software. As for simply why you should copyright your work, well, imagine this. If you developed a video game or an application and that app became very successful, how would you feel if someone were to take that and take all the credit for it? It makes you feel pretty bad. So that's why copywriting exists. As for why exactly it's ethically bad to copy someone else's software, well, say you're the developer, you put in all the work and the design came out of your own mind. To have someone who didn't even have the ability to come up with something like that and take credit for your work is pretty frustrating, at least I would say. As for society, I believe it loses, because not only is it the same exact concept about stealing, you're having credit go to the person that did nothing for the work, so value is being distributed in a wrong way. Engineers and consumers want new products, new software, not older mindsets. Imagine if us as a species were to try and evolve using the same exact tactics used in history. Well, we wouldn't really be where we are right now. So we generally tend to want new ideas, new experiences. So that's why it's ethically bad in my opinion. Moving on to the topic of piracy, it can come in different forms. For example, say I have the necessary skills to hack Microsoft in their all-knowing eye. I managed to gain an access key for one of their newest softwares without paying for it at all. And say with that access key, I'm able to create multiple copies of that unpaid software and begin to sell them to the general public without the main developers who created that software, um, without them knowing. Is that essentially bad? Well, yes. You're creating this pool of value that's increasing slowly with every sale that you make, and that value goes to the wrong individual. It goes to the person who stole the work. And that, I believe, is not a good thing. So the general rule of thumb is just stick to your own work. So we talked about the negative things that can come out of copying someone else. Now we're going to be talking about the positive aspects and what good can come out of this. To do this, we're going to take an example. Say you're in a programming class and your professor assigns you a project. You decide to ask your classmate to view his program. Say he or she accepts. Seeing what your classmate did in his program or her program, you can use those techniques and implement them into your own design to make something unique. Is that considered piracy? Is that considered copyright? Some would say yes. Personally, I would say no, only due to the fact that you're not copying and pasting my exact software. You're taking my technique, which is fine, as long as you do your own separate thing. In an even better example, take two software engineers, Bob and Dave. Both are competing for the same position. Bob decides to talk to Dave and ask him about his coding techniques. This in turn is going to inspire Bob to use those techniques and implement them into his own code and design. Is this considered to be bad? What if Bob gets the job instead of Dave? Is this still considered bad? Do you think it's fair? Or is it simply the transfer of knowledge from one mind to another? And the bigger question is, does society gain or lose from this? In this case, I would say society gained because Bob has his old techniques of coding and Dave's techniques of coding. So that in turn ended up for the better software developer. So of course Bob is going to get the job. In the modern 21st century, our language of computers is ever growing, especially with the new implementations of languages in Java. We have C, CSS, HTML, and even more and more various options of coding language are being more available, causing a rise in tech and more options to be available for more software developers in the field. What does this essentially mean for people? There really isn't a need to steal other people's work because of the amount of options available to the public. In conclusion, as a general rule of thumb for whoever wants to be an online pirate, don't do it. Copyright laws are just going to squeeze you. However, if you're just looking for some tips and tricks, ask around. You're going to learn information from many, many people. And hell, you might even learn something new. Just don't pirate things. Society loses from it. Thank you all.